Good morning. I'm happy today to welcome you at the Post Expo conference about how the postal sector revived after the Covid-19. Remember, in 2019 at the same time, it was completely another world. And today we have to be in the next normal. What I will be happy to present to you today is what happened between December 2019 until today. I will be happy to explain you what were the 4 pillars affecting the postal sector in general. Just quickly to tell you that, first of all, there were new policies and regulation. 2, postal operators had to completely review their operations. 3, the consumer and the user behaviors changed significantly. And 4, they had to innovate. Let's have a look.
In only 100 days, the virus spread all over the world, as we all know. The governments reacted quite quickly by shutting down the borders, limiting companies' ability to source globally, and affecting their operations locally. Policies and regulation to contain the virus moved from global to local lockdowns, and we have many examples of it in Spain, in Belgium, and Portugal, impacting all the logistics sector in particular and all the business in general. In just few weeks' time, we saw a significant reduction of air cargo capacity. We saw immediately a supply chain cost increase, and we saw the tensions from unavailability of capacity to convey goods across borders or eventually within the countries. In other words, the only thing that changed for all the postal companies is everything.
And of course, after such impact of the Covid-19, the question raised was, what happened in the postal sector? And especially, was it possible to send postal items across the world and locally?
Sending of postal items has been interrupted or disrupted at international and local levels. Quite quickly, postal operators suspended the sending of parcels and letters outside Europe and in some cases within Europe. But it was not the only challenge that postal operators were facing. They were also facing challenges in the local delivery. For example, governments took decisions to get telework mandatory for a lot of companies. As a consequence, none of the companies were getting their mailbox empty again. And it was a serious issue to maintain the operations. But at the same time, postal operators had to adapt themselves with new processes to respect health regulations and, for example, keeping the social distancing. But it was not the only problem again that the postal sector was facing. There were also, for a number of sectors, the fake news. For example, authorities had to react quickly to COVID-19 fake news, and especially about the possibility of COVID transmission through the parcels. The population was quite stressed and believed that it was possible to catch the COVID by the parcels. Governments had to publish a number of answers on their website to make sure that consumers could understand that it was not a serious risk for their health. Then, in other words, the new normal is taking shape and is made of a number of opportunities and obviously a number of questions. The healthcare reshaped services, partially and completely. That was obvious for everybody. But what we saw affecting the postal sector was the supply chain fragility that the COVID-19 was bringing to all of us. And finally, we saw equally that the number of consumers were changing completely their behaviors.
According to you, what did affect the postal sector?
Implications on postal sector are articulated on 4 pillars: policies and regulation, operations, user behavior, and innovation. Regarding the policy and regulation, we can say that the COVID-19 crisis had multiple implications, including legal challenges. Governments took quite quickly decision to impose a number of healthcare rules. For example, in the post office, they had to respect social distancing or maximum number of customers within the premises. But it was also affecting big sorting center and e-commerce players' activities. For example, governments in some cases decide to force a number of players to treat only the essential services. At the same time, governments had to decide which services was essential to the society. And the postal sector was perceived as a trust services for primary needs. For example, postal sector had to deliver further social benefits payment, pension payments, welfare benefits payment, but also at the same time performing the activities, they had to respect physical distancing. The postal sector also helps spontaneously to support healthcare initiatives. For example, Jersey Post, in collaboration with Call and Check, helped the persons being home to have contact with each other to ensure they were going well and in good health. In summary, the policies and regulation decisions taken by the governments were affecting operators at various levels. One, on healthcare prevention, because governments imposed general restriction applying to access post office and in human contacts, affecting globally the postal sector in their operations, but also asking the postal operators to be a key player in delivering the supplies needed for the workers, the families, and the elderly people. But we also saw in the healthcare prevention aspect very good initiative, for example, from Correos de Portugal, who did a partnership for the production and distribution of alcohol-based antiseptic solution. Policies and regulation applied also to services. For example, priority delivery for some customers were defined by governments. They ask also to the postal sector to secure financial primary functions like pay pension and benefits. And last but not least, they require assistance for the delivery of food and primary necessity and personal protection equipment. But governments also took decisions affecting the operations. For example, they took regulatory decision releasing operators from the universal service obligations, mainly by allowing the operators to change the frequency and the quality of the services. But they also allowed operators to adapt their process of delivery, and especially, for example, related to registered mail. And last but not least, they also asked the operators to re-establish as soon as possible the flows of international postal items so far possible. But they also ask for non-essential mail flows reduction in some cases. They also were involved in the support of the cost of delivering of postal items, and a number of NRAs were involved in crisis management to support postal operators to find supplies. The postal operations were significantly disrupted at local level, but obviously at international level. What we can see is that from March 16 up to today, the number of message exchange into UPU messaging system was showing that the increase of disrupted services or force majeure, invoked or suspension of services, or even limited international transport capacity was significantly and growing from days to days. But it was also the availability of labor which was putting stress on the logistic of the postal network, because obviously the workers were also impacted.
A lot of measures impacting the postal operations affect the way the volumes were driven in the operations. But one of the key things that we observed were the increase of parcels up to 5 times the volume we had in Christmas and at the peak time of the year. This is just incredible how the consumers change their behaviors to order more goods online.
Allow me to give you an example of an operator's Australia Post, which succeeded to adapt itself to the situation. For example, they put 8 extra freighter flights to help to speed up delivery. They just increased the opening hours of their facilities. They even create new facilities to get extra capacity of processing and delivery. They also moved a number of staff from one business to another to make sure that they could deliver more. And they were capable to train posties to deliver parcels when their main task was to deliver letters. This is just amazing what they did. I have no words to say how impressive it was to see how the postal operations adapted to perform further. In terms of capacity, they were capable to handle levels of parcels which were equivalent to peak season levels. Postal operators have been capable to work together to contract charter flights, trains and boats, and they even expand shipment and sorting capabilities. In terms of service level, they were capable to adapt their services to make sure that extended retention period was possible for specific items. They reviewed time guarantees for special delivery and also changed the opening times of offices. In terms of delivery and business continuity, they've been capable to implement a number of preventive safety measures for their postal staff. For example, putting and getting necessary protection material, gloves, masks, antiseptic, protection panels, separation lines, and so on, to make sure they could perform further the activities. And they were also changing slightly proof of delivery process to make sure they could continue to deliver the services. Thank you so much to postal operators. Of course, the consumer behavior are also impacting the postal sector. For example, what we see in terms of trends is that the user habits change and might continue to change towards the new normal. For example, based on the latest study from McKinsey Company, the consumer use of online channels before and expected use after the Covid-19 will be significantly higher. We can definitely say that the new consumer behaviors span all areas of life, from how we work, how we shop, and how we entertain ourselves. These rapid shifts have important implications for retailers and consumer packaged good companies, including postal sector. And consumer will probably continue to order more online and potentially more local.
The impact of COVID-19 on the postal sector has been significant. From policies and regulation, consumer behaviors, operations, and finally, innovation. But that's really the advantage. The postal sector has been incredibly capable to integrate innovation everywhere, from the post office to the services and in the last mile for delivery.
Postal operators have been capable to transform challenges into opportunities for the benefits of all. For example, they developed applications on smartphones to improve emotions of the population. The Love You and Smile campaigns are few of the many that we saw, which was allowing the citizens to stay in touch with their friends and family thanks to free postcards. Regarding inclusion, for example, Posta Kenya was reducing the price of delivery for customers countrywide at this critical time. In the Middle East, Emirate Post was offering free delivery of mail items to 60 plus years of age. But they also provide a number of digital services, especially for small and medium enterprise who had an important need to move their businesses from physical activities to online activities. It's incredible what the postal operators could do. But they were also working with platforms to ensure that the traditional cash on delivery was possible through applications and avoiding contacts. It is also a number of applications that they will promote further, like for example, digitally preview your letter-sized mail and even possible to read them. They also announced, some of them, that it was possible to allow customers to pay for postage by app and write a code on the envelope instead of using a stamp. Allow me to give you a good example among many examples that we have across the globe in terms of best practice. Emirates Post has been capable to deal with COVID-19, answering the policy and regulation requirements, capable to tackle a huge increase of volumes into the operations, being capable to adapt to consumer needs and also to innovate at the same time. The postal sector is incredible.
It has been a pleasure to talk to you today about what happened within the postal sector. Is it just amazing how the postal sector is resilient and capable to innovate? And within the next normal, I remind you, the postal sector is essential to a society. And please, let's never forget it again.